Who is?
It's time to end the years of Democrat failure. It's time for a new future. That's why I'm running for governor, to make this beautiful state that we love so much truly golden again.
That is Republican Steve Hilton announcing his run for California governor this week. He also held a big launch event in Huntington Beach. Steve Hilton, welcome back to The Issue Is. Congrats on the run.
Thank
First
you.
time on this show as a candidate.
I know. We've been talking over the years, Alex, and it's wonderful to be here.
Yeah. Not a huge surprise. You've been hinting at this for a long time, but congrats on the run. But ultimately, why did you decide to do this? Because we know the odds for Republicans is not always been great. Why the idea of running?
I love California so much. We've been here since 2012, moved here from England with my family. I've had the opportunity to do amazing things in this state, live the California dream. And in many ways, California inspired me even before we moved here. When I was working back in the day in the British government, preparing our policy plans, it was described by the media as California dreaming. That Steve Hilton's vision for the UK is modeled on California. And once that was true, because we were an inspiration to the world. But now you look at what's happened. We've got the highest unemployment in the country for much of last year, the highest rate of poverty, the worst business climate. People are really struggling. And so over the years, I've been getting involved in those issues. I've been traveling the state for 2 years now, talking to people and families and business owners, just hearing how desperate they are for change. I've been working on the policy ideas. The first thing I did, we talked about it, was try and do something about our housing crisis. And as that process went on, it seemed to me that I didn't just want to talk about it, I actually want to do something about it to save California, to restore the California dream and make this state golden again.
For a lot of people that watch Fox News Channel, they're familiar with you and your story and your show, but a lot of people aren't, that are just hearing about you for the first time. So can you tell us a little bit about your background, something you talk about in your campaign commercial? Yes. You grew up in the UK. You worked, you said, for David Cameron, the Prime Minister there. Tell us a little bit about you. So
I've got the accent still, people can see. I'm working on that.
Yeah.
But the most important thing people need to understand, I'm a proud American and a proud Californian too. And that really is the foundation of this, to restore the glory of this beautiful state. My parents, though, are Hungarian. And that's a really important part of my makeup, if you like, because they fled communism in Hungary. They went in search of freedom and ended up in England, and that's where I was born, in a free country. But that was the 1970s in England. It was in a country in real decline, with many of the same kinds of problems that we see here in California. And my earliest political memory was Margaret Thatcher. And she really fought back for freedom and restored the spirit of enterprise in the UK and really got things going. And to me, that's a real inspiration. And looking at it from another point of view, back then in the 70s in England, the UK was known as the sick man of Europe. And I'm afraid to say, when you look at the facts about what's going on in California, in many ways right now, we're the sick man of America. That's what we need to change, because we can't go on like this. I think this is a now or never election for California. We've got to change direction.
I mean, there's a lot of bad things, but there are still a lot of good things. Fifth largest economy in the world, leading the world in technology and entertainment and so much agriculture. I mean, so many things that are also great about the state, which is why I know you want
I'd love to talk about that, Elex, because all those things are true. And I'm incredibly proud of the fact that we're such a dominant economy, the size of our economy. But if you go through each one of those industries, those iconic industries, our innovation economy, our tech industry, it's not creating this new wave of technology, the AI boom, which is fantastic. It's great that we're leading the world. It doesn't create very many jobs, even fewer than the first round of innovation. You look at the entertainment industry, here where we're speaking in Los Angeles, leaving the state. You've got film and TV production leaving to other states, other countries. That's taking with it really good jobs. So I think unless we change, and agriculture, my goodness, our farmers, I was in the Central Valley not long ago, fig farmers, 5th generation, and they just can't make it work anymore. It breaks my heart. They're having to leave the state because of the regulations, the water being taken away, the taxes. We've got to change direction.
So you know the reality that no Republican has won statewide since 2006. That was Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was the most famous guy in the world and married to a Kennedy Democrat.
That's not me.
So how do you actually do this? How does a Republican win in a state when there's 25% more Democrats registered here?
So I don't actually see it as a partisan thing. As I said today at my event in Huntington Beach, this is not red or blue, it's golden.
Well,
we've got to focus on...
You said that, but then you also had a whole lot of real red people there. I mean, you've got Charlie Kirk, you've got Vivek Ramaswamy, you've got Kevin Kiley, you've got John Voight. I mean, these are Trump, MAGA people. Everybody there wearing the Trump hats. I mean, this did not feel like a lot of blue in this event.
But I've been on the road and speaking to Democrats and Republicans alike and independents. Remember, that's a really big group here in California. I think there's an opportunity for a credible candidate who puts forward common sense, practical ideas that aren't ideological. I think that's one of the big problems we've had in California. Too much ideology rather than practical things that actually help people. I think there's a real market for that because people want change. They know we need change. I mean, everyone agrees we need change. The question is, can we put forward a credible, specific plan for how we give people the themes of my campaign: great jobs, great homes, great kids.
Vivek Ramaswamy announced his endorsement for you. Charlie Kirk announced his endorsement for you. Have you asked President Trump for his endorsement?
I have not, and I'm very focused on California, not federal politics, because we've got a lot of problems here, and that's what we need to focus on. That's the whole theme of my campaign. Let's really get to work putting together a movement for change so we can deal with the housing crisis. We have the highest housing costs in the country. That's the number one reason people are leaving California. We've got to do something about that.
If he endorsed you, though, you would accept it, right?
Oh, I'd be totally proud to accept the endorsement of anyone who is not just a leader in the Republican Party, but president of our great country. I mean, that would be a great honor. But of course, the interesting thing, if you look at that today, we also had Lan He-chen, who a good friend, someone I've worked with for a while. He ran for state control a couple of years ago. We had Gloria Romero there, the former Democrat leader of the state Senate. I'm really serious about putting together a broad coalition, non-partisan, in the sense of common sense solutions that people can agree about that aren't political in the old-fashioned sense. They're just pragmatic and practical.
You talked about the fact that we don't have party primaries anymore running for governor. But if we did, your toughest competitor right now would be Sheriff Chad Bianco. You both are going for Republican votes right now. What's your take on Sheriff Bianco and why you think you're better than him?
Well, I'm going for everybody's support because, as I said, we've got to do this together to make our state what it really should be. I'm focused on the fact that we've got to change direction. And in the end, that means changing from this one part. We had 15 years of one party rule. So I think the purpose of this election is to see who is going to be the best candidate to make that change happen. And I'm going for it, and the sheriff is going for it, and we'll see. I'm focused on making the argument for change and being the best person to credibly offer this.
But why are you better than him?
I wouldn't make the comparison specifically. I would just say I've got a track record of leadership on the issues. Remember, back in the pandemic, when everyone else said, got to shut everything down, I was one of the first people to say no, to stand up against the groupthink and to say we've got to actually open things up, follow the science on so many issues, on our relationship with China. For years, I was arguing about that before people now, there's a consensus about that. On many issues, I've had a leading role, and I think specifically working across a range of policy inside of a government to make change happen.
What about Rick Caruso, who was a Republican, may run as a Democrat? Some might argue that's a better way to win. What do you make of him?
Well, the interesting thing, Alex, about Rick Caruso is it's striking that this is someone who became a Democrat at the height of the far left lunacy that the Democratic Party fell into. And I just don't understand that. I also don't understand why, when he's making the case, I think very convincingly, that we need a change of leadership here in Los Angeles after the catastrophe of the wildfires and the response, Rick Caruso came out against the recall that myself and Nicole Shanahan, who was Bobby Kennedy's running mate in the presidential election, we've been working together on a recall. Rick Caruso said, no, we don't need a recall. And I just don't understand that. I think that if you really believe in change, you've got to fight for it and argue for it.
Interesting. You talked about during your launch campaign watching our show.
Yes.
And you saw our interview with Javier Bera.
Yes.
And I talked to him about changes for housing affordability.
Yes.
I don't think you were impressed by his answer where he talked about scrubbing the system.
Yes.
What do you make of him as a competitor and your thoughts on his interview with us?
Well, I think it's astonishing, honestly, that someone who says there, well, first of all, let's remember what he said in his announcement video, which was that the California dream, which was there for his parents, is not there now. He's right. I agree with that. But who destroyed that California dream? Javier Becerra's party and its policies, because no one else has been around. They've been in charge for 15 years of one-party rule. So that's the first point. How can the people who made the mess be the ones to clear it up? But secondly, when you asked him about what he says is his number one priority, dealing with the affordability crisis, he just talked basically gibberish. You can't do that. This is serious. This is, as you mentioned, leadership of the 5th largest economy in the world. We've got to have people who understand policy, who understand how to implement policy, and who've got clear ideas for how we get California back on track.
What's the number one thing you would do when it comes to affordability in this state to make things cheaper for people?
The number one thing is to reduce the tax burden on working people. That's the quickest thing we can do to relieve the financial pressure, because it's unbelievable to me that people earning salaries that really don't get you very far in California these days, 70,000, 80,000, let alone below that, are paying state income tax up to 9% plus. So the first part of my plan, Great Jobs, is to take everyone who's earning $100,000 or less out of state income tax. That's the first step. Secondly, for businesses who are struggling under this incredible burden of regulation, we've got to go back to basics, sunset all our regulations. So we ask ourselves, do we need any of this stuff that's clogging up businesses? People may say that's difficult to achieve. Idaho did it. When they did it, they cut their regulations by 95%. On housing, we've got to get away from this situation where we have the highest housing costs in the country. There are specific things we can do there. We've got to cap hidden housing taxes. They're called impact fees. Berkeley Turner Center, UC Berkeley, have estimated that these hidden taxes on housing are up to 20% of the price. We need to cap them. We need to end the anti-housing lawsuits that stop housing being built. We need to stop the regulations that make it so expensive to build.
So we see, though, we have a deficit this year. If you take all those people out of the tax system, how do you make up the revenue?
Well, we need to cut spending. The budget of the state of California, this is an unbelievable number. The budget of the state of California has doubled in the last 10 years.
So what do you cut?
Even after inflation, it's gone up by 50%. Massive bloat in our state government. That's where you've got to start. If you're a business today in California, you have got so much coming at you from all these different agencies of the state government. And then you've got regional agencies and local government. We've got to, look at the salaries people are paid here in Los Angeles. The empty reservoir lady, right? $750,000.
The head of the LADWP.
The DWP.
Quinones.
There's been an enormous inflation in what government costs. And is anything better after all this increase in the spending? You look at homelessness, where spending's gone up billions and billions of dollars, but the problem's got worse. So don't tell me that we can't get the budget back to a reasonable size. By the way, our tax plan to take everyone earning $100,000 or less out of state income tax, and the spending reduction that would make that possible, that would take us just back to pre-pandemic spending levels. This is not some impossible task. This is totally reasonable and practical, and I'm going to get it done.
To do that, though, you may have to defeat Kamala Harris, who is considering running for governor, also considering running for president. You had very strong words about her during your rally this week. What is your basic thought about Kamala Harris and her decision now to potentially enter the governor's race?
So the sad thing for me, watching how she's approaching this, is when you look at all these articles, we get them almost every week now, Kamala Harris seriously considering running and when she might make a decision and so on. When you look at what and by the way, it's not her saying, it's her aides on her behalf. All of the things that are being said about why she might run for California governor are not about us or these problems that you and I have been talking about, how to fix the housing crisis or help small business or help our farmers. Nothing to do with that. It's all about herself. It's about the fact that she doesn't want her last act in public life to be certifying Donald Trump's presidential election victory, or that she wants to be, she's intrigued, that was the word used, that she's intrigued by being the first female black governor of a state. Now, they may or may not be things that matter to Kamala Harris, but that doesn't matter at all to anyone watching tonight who's struggling to pay the bills. We need a governor who actually understands the real lives of Californians and how they're struggling and suffering, and has got concrete plans to do something about it. I haven't seen a sign of that from Kamala Harris.
So you're not concerned about her as a potential competitor?
I'm not at all. I said today, bring it, Kamala. You know, I don't think that she has shown that she's got the seriousness, the policy seriousness, to actually make a difference and to offer the change that we need in California.
So you write an entire book about your policy seriousness called Failure, where you talk about some of the problems here. If you became the governor, you're now working with a heavily Democratic legislature, potentially still a supermajority in both houses. How do you get anything done?
It's a really important point. And the thing I would offer as a perspective is that you mentioned that I worked for David Cameron, a Conservative Prime Minister, but it was a coalition government. It was two parties working together in partnership, the Conservative Party and the Liberal Democrat Party. I was right at the heart of that. I helped negotiate the coalition agreement between the two parties. I literally shared an office in 10 Downing Street with my opposite number from another party, Polly. We had our moments of disagreement, but we worked together to get things done. And I would expect that when I'm elected, the people would have spoken. They would have made clear their desire for change. It would be a political revolution in California. So I would expect the legislature to listen to the will of the people and to work with me to enact the agenda that people voted for.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a huge, huge national story if that were to happen. So we like to end things with something fun here on this show to get to know you. This is our personal issues game. 30 seconds, your cultural favorites. First thing that comes to mind. Steve Hilton, what's your favorite recent TV show that you've seen?
Okay. I've actually watched it twice as real light relief from all of this. 4 seasons, called My Agent.
Okay.
So this is a show about a talent agency. It's a little bit obscure, I know.
Okay.
It's a talent agency in Paris. It's incredibly funny and brilliant, and I love Paris, so it's a beautiful combination of many things.
What's your favorite band or musician?
There's so many. I love music. My mum was on a video today, and she reminded me, I'd forgotten that when I was a teenager, my goal in life was to be a DJ.
Right.
So it's very difficult to choose. I love Radiohead, I love the Beatles, I love dance music. I go to Glastonbury as often as I can. It's very difficult to pick one band.
Whatever happened to the DJ thing?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe if this doesn't work out, Alex, that's where I'm stuck with.
See you mixing some music. Well, thank you for coming on. We got queued up one of your songs.
Okay.
So this is Let the Sunshine In.
Okay, very good.
Your launch event. We saw you dancing to this.
Oh dear, well it's a little,
As we make California golden again.
That's the plan.
Which is your new slogan. Thanks so much, Steve. Great to see you.
Great to see you. Thanks, Alex.
Appreciate it.